All right, so your challenges and your opportunities would then be things that you need to look at, your royalties. In the sense, if you come from an author's perspective, the royalties would obviously be less if they publish with a traditional publishing house, because they only get like 12 to 18% of the sale of the book's recommended resale price when they sell. Whereas if they do it on their own, they don't have to rely on the publisher or worry about the publisher taking a big chunk of their money. They then get all the money, whatever comes their way. All right, formats, that can be a challenge. That can definitely be a challenge, because you also, even if you do an online version, now remember, self-publishing is not necessarily only online or electronic publishing, although that is what is mostly done by self-publishing, but you can also go to a printing house and do a print on demand of only 10 or 20 copies of your book, and sell it directly from your own author website as well. But format can sometimes be a problem, because the specific online platforms require you to upload files in a specific format, whether it be EPUB or a PDF, iBooks. They all have their own rules and regulations with regard to format. I know with our self-published authors as well, on Draft to Digital, we'll give you some of these names now, but on Draft to Digital, it's a online platform where authors can publish their work. What's cool about that is you just upload it in a Word file and they convert it to an EPUB, which is then the file format. You'll learn more about this in your third year, but it's a file format that is compatible with e-readers. Or then a PDF or iBooks. And what's cool about these online sites as well is that they already have digital rights management, so the books can't just be copied and sent via one another. Whereas if you do these things on your own and you're not aware of that, and you don't use a platform that's actually safe and secure, you may lose your work and your story can be distributed easily without any protection. I also know that for Amazon Direct or the Kindle Direct self-publishing platform, they have a very specific guideline as to how you need to format your file. If you're uploading it in a PDF or you're uploading it in a Word file, they give you very specific instructions in terms of margins and spacing and all of these things, how your headings, numbering, everything should look, in order for you to upload a file and display correctly then in their specific formats, because Amazon and the Kindle use their own format, which is called Mobi. All right, so Mobi is one of the formats and EPUB is another format. A challenge and an opportunity can also be the ease of the process. Sometimes if you are quite accustomed with e-publishing, it may be easy for you to just upload and do it. Whereas if you're a new author and now all of a sudden you're trying your hand at self-publishing, it may be a little bit difficult to learn all the steps and know what is happening. Whereas if you go with a traditional publishing house, they will tell you exactly what the process entails. They take care of editing. You're in good hands. You're in good hands in terms of expertise and specialized skill. Now, carrying the risk. In a traditional model, your publisher basically carries most of the risk because they are investing all of the money in producing this book and publishing the book. Whereas if you're an author and you're self-publishing, you are taking that risk on you. You're putting your money into something. Whether it's going to sell or not, you're not going to know. Now, marketing. That's always a problem with people who self-publish. They don't always really realize how much goes into the marketing of a book and, the discoverability of the book and getting people to go to the website, to download it, creating media awareness, speaking on the radio, sending people books so that they can review it. It's so much that you need to do on your own if you're only one person. Whereas with a marketing team at a publishing house, they already know the target audience, they have systems and processes and things in place. They have a wide pool of resources that they can tap into and networks in order to do the marketing properly. Now, I should also say, it's not to say that all self-publishers are necessarily failing. You've had and we'll get to a case study just now, but there are some successful self-published authors who actually prefer to do it on their own and they actually make money or a living from that. quality. Now, quality is a very important factor. As you know, with publishing, one of the main things that a publisher does is adding value to an author's work. All right. And you have to remember that a publishing house is a business, or publishing is a business. So you're exchanging a product. And in exchange for that product, you get money. So there needs to be a value proposition. People think about a book and they think, what is this worth to me? And yes, I'll pay 200 Rand, or no, I'll only pay 100 Rand. But they also have expectations as to what they get. So if you're an online self-published author and you ask people $3, they expect something very specific. Whereas it's the same as if you walk into a bookstore and you are buying a book off the shelf, you're expecting quality. And this is sometimes an area where our self-published authors really struggle, because they presume or assume that because they wrote the work, or they're writing the work, that it's good enough, and they, and it's just okay. Whereas there's actually a reason where there are certain processes and things in place at a traditional publishing house. Why you need to read through a manuscript, why you need to give them an assessment or a report on it. We call it reader's report or reviewer's report, to tell us, do you like the book? Don't you like the book? Where are areas that they can improve on? Whereas when you're a self-published author, you don't necessarily have that backing. You maybe just believe that your story is fantastic and you publish it, and it may be of very poor quality. Exposure. Now, the exposure goes with marketing. What kind of exposure are you getting when you're doing it by yourself? Do you have enough contacts and ways and means of doing this? Do you have some money that you can use for marketing? Whereas with publishing, as I said, they have contacts, they have media lists, they have people that they speak to advertise books, to promote the book. Maybe you're a fantastic marketer, so you can maybe possibly do very well with self-publishing. The prestige. Some authors believe that they do not want to self-publish because they'd rather stick with a traditional publishing house, as there's more status and prestige in being published by a well-known brand. Now, I shouldn't say that that's always the case. I mean, some publishing houses have also printed books that haven't sold well, or it's not that great quality necessarily, but that is a perception, either from the reader side or from the author side, that there's some kind of status or prestige attached to being published by a traditional publishing house with a well-known or an established brand name. It comes with credibility. People believe it. They just see quality if they think, oh, you're published by Penguin, as opposed to a short story being published online by him or herself. Then you get vanity publishing, which you should be very careful of. And I think there are unfortunately, a lot of self-published authors that are actually, I don't know how to say this in English, gevang. They are basically lured into this whole idea of, oh, I'm going to get my book published, but basically it's a vanity publisher. And that means they only take your money and they publish the book, and they work out a little quote, and they tell you this is what it's going to cost to publish your book. But they don't give you any insight as to your story, your concept, your idea, or anything. They just publish it because they are just there to render a service, to do something for you, but they don't necessarily add that option for you to say, listen, we will publish your book, but do know that even if it's a self-publishing division under our publishing house, we would still like to review it and give you a reader's review or a reviewer's comments, as opposed to just saying, okay, let's just take your money and publish it, even though you know that this book will never sell in the way or in the format or the tone or the approach or the theme, whatever approach is used, or maybe it's pitched at the wrong audience. But you as a publisher actually know what is best, and you rather just take the money and publish the book without really giving people advice. You can always give people advice, but then tell them it's going to cost them money, and they then at least can decide. Now, I have a great case study here. This one, has been around for many, many years. It's actually amazing, and we'll go through the stats just now. But I don't know how many of you guys know the book. You're quite young, but from my years on, I still remember it. It's called Kook en Geniet, and the English version is Cook and Enjoy. And more what do you call it? More than 1 million copies of this book have already sold over the years. And what's interesting about this, it was actually originally self-published. Here you can see, sorry, the quality of the left-hand side image is not great, but you can see that some of the older versions of the book, obviously it changed dramatically over the years. There's the author at the bottom. Alright, so a few notes on this case study. In 1951, this book was self-published. How they did it, I have no idea. But they did the design, the layout, that she put all the recipes together herself, and it was funded by herself, SCR de Villiers, and her husband. So they self-published it. And then by 1961, CNA, now I don't know if Beth mentioned this to you guys, but CNA was actually a publishing house as well before it just became, you know, a distributor and a shop and a stationer, etc., etc. But they actually were so interested in this book, and they actually persuaded the author to do an English edition as well. I actually only thought that the English edition came about later on, but it was already in 1961. They persuaded the author to do an English edition as well, so they got the rights to help her do it. And then after a few years, they said, okay, we're not really going to carry on with our publishing endeavor anymore. And there were a lot of things in between, but by the end of the day, one person from Heman and Rousseau, which we now know is part of NB Publishers, they then actually took it over, and they then published both Afrikaans and the English editions. They carried on with that. At the end of the day, more than 1 million copies have already sold of this book. It's still in print. The author has died in the meantime. Unfortunately, her daughter took it over, and she is still publishing books under this name. They even have a little kids version as well, or edition as well. I think it's Cook and Geniet for kids or something like that. Cook and Enjoy for kids. I'll see if I can find a photo of that, but you guys can go and look it up as well. But there has already been 14 editions every time. So every time they update an edition or they make a little change here or whatever. So all in all, there's already been 14 editions. This book is still in print. Can you believe it? It's actually one of the most popular cookbooks in South Africa that is still in print. And this shows as well that self-publishing could be very successful. Although she initially started out self-publishing, this is sometimes what happens, is they initially start out with a self-publication, then they get some fans, or they make, you know, a little bit of a noise and people start noticing them, and then a publisher comes in and says, wait, I will help you, let's do this properly. This is the same thing that happened with E.L. James and the 50 Shades of Grey. It was originally also self-published, and then a publisher picked them up and then, you know, republished it, or then actually published it in that format, although I still think the writing is not fantastic. But I guess the theme then won that battle. But yes, this is just to basically show you, this is one case study. You can go and read up a little more of this. I have another publishing, a lady who's a self-published author. I'll see if I can find her card. And she also does all of these things herself. She's a little bit shy, because I have asked her before if she would like to come and speak to my students. She's a little bit shy, but I'll see if I can find her details and post her website details on as well. And she's been doing this for I don't know how long, and she's very successful in doing it. So I guess it all depends on the kind of book, who your target audience is, your business savvy, your creativity, and your determination at the end of the day. So self-publishing shouldn't necessarily be seen as a threat to traditional publishing. I think it depends on the kind of book and how you see it. And as I say, rather join them than beat them. Yes, that doesn't really make sense, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Some online platforms that you get is Kindle Direct Publishing, Apple, Smashwords, Script, Lulu, Draft to Digital, Quartz Publishers, and if you can think of any others, you're more than welcome to do so. But check out these websites of these platforms and go and familiarize yourselves. I think it will help for your prac that you need to hand in. All right, and I'm going to do the next one just now.